This is a story that has been told in different cultures and languages. For words everywhere are sacred, in all traditions. Each word carries weight, promise, and consequences, and gives us stories. Ton Adibeo stares as a single leaf trembles in the wind. It detaches from its branch and winds slowly downward. His heart hammers as he realizes that only a handful of leaves are left on the mystical tree that has turned his life upside down. The counter on his phone flashes the alert, words remaining, 10. Let's go back a bit to before Ton's life began to flash before his eyes. We start in the heart of Lagos, a city that never sleeps in the western part of Africa. The air hummed with honking horns and hurried conversations. Ton Adibeo moves through it all like a king in his expensive car. Known as a man who could talk his way through anything. Handsome and tall, with a winning smile that was half charm and half years of practice. His office at Platinum Pier overlooked the city's financial district, walls decorated with photos of smiling celebrities and politicians, all clients he had rescued from various pier disasters. His job? Spinning scandals. Turning lies into narratives, and making rich men richer. Tell them it was a misunderstanding, he texts a senator's assistant. No, better yet, say it was taken out of context. The media twisted his words. He grins. Another crisis averted. Another payday secured. His life is words, words, words. But that was all about to change. At 35, Ton had mastered the art of the spin, transforming scandals into opportunities and lies into lucrative truths. This was Ton's natural state, constant motion, endless words. When his girlfriend Zainab texted about their dinner reservation, he responded with the perfect mix of apology and charm, knowing exactly how to calm her without committing to arriving on time. By evening, as he drove to meet with a potential new client, his best friend Chak called with a warning. This Baba Ifagbemi character is strange, man. People say he went to Silicon Valley, made his billions, then came back and went all traditional. Be careful. Ton laughed. He wasn't very worried about some old recluse who believed in his lies. After all, he was a man with everything, a great job, a beautiful house close to the beach, and a woman he would soon make his wife, but no rush on that part. He had all the time in the world. Or so he thought. Baba Ifagbemi's compound stood apart from Lagos's chaotic energy, silent and peaceful. There is no security or assistance in the sprawling estate where modern architecture is mixed with more traditional elements. The old man received Ton in a courtyard where birds sang in ornate cages and a small fountain created the only sound between their exchanges. As they spoke, the old man seemed to see through Ton. He said, "My grandfather thought that words are like seeds. Plant them carelessly, and you may not like what grows." Eager to demonstrate cultural connection, Ton laughed. "My grandmother used to say something similar, the mouth can dig a grave deeper than any shovel. Old superstitions, you know. But powerful messaging concept." Something darkened in Baba's eyes. Not superstition. Truth you have forgotten. You talk too much. Maybe it is time for silence. Ton laughs. The next morning, a strange tree appears in his backyard. A massive shade tree towers outside his flat window. But Ton was sure it hadn't been there yesterday. Convinced it was his imagination playing tricks on him, he went on about his day getting ready for work, until he spoke on a conference call and watched, horrified, as a single leaf detached and floated to the ground. Throughout the day, the pattern continued, words spoken, leaves falling. After exhaustive testing, the impossible truth settled in his stomach like a cold stone. The tree was counting his words, and when the last leaf fell, what? A text from Zainab, "You didn't text me last night, are you still coming to dinner?" He starts typing, then freezes. Every word counts. He decided to text her later. In confusion, Ton returned to Baba Ifagbemi's compound, only to find it inexplicably vacant, with locals claiming no one had lived there for years. Panic rising, he confided in Chike, who suggested therapy until Ton forced him to his home on Lagos Island and demonstrated the phenomenon, speak, watch, live for. "This is some serious juju, man," Chike whispered, wide-eyed. "What are you going to do?" Ton had no clue, but he resolved to investigate. In the meantime, he developed systems for preserving words, text messages, pre-recorded voice notes, and elaborate hand signals. At work, he claimed a horrible throat infection, buying time. His boss, initially sympathetic, grew suspicious as the workweek ended. Meanwhile, Zainab's patience were thinner with each silent dinner. "I don't understand," she finally said one evening. "You text me paragraphs, but when we're together, nothing. Relationships are conversations, turned. This feels like I'm talking to myself." When she left that night, he didn't have words to call her back. The tree outside had roughly 1,500 leaves remaining. 2 weeks into his silence, Ton arrived home to find his mother waiting at his door. He hadn't spoken to her in years, not since their argument about his father's absence. She looked older, worry etched into the lines around her eyes. Chike had called her, she explained, following him inside. "He's very worried about you." Ton gestured helplessly at his throat, maintaining the illness charade, but his mother saw through it immediately. "Don't lie to me, Ton. Not with your hands instead of your mouth." That night, as she cooked his childhood favorite dishes, she filled the silence with stories of his youth, how he'd been a quiet child until his father left, then suddenly couldn't stop talking, as if afraid silence would swallow him whole. She spoke softly about his need to fill every space with words. "I thought it was your way of healing. Now I wonder if it was your way of hiding." The tree now had roughly 1,200 leaves. Ton's silence became his greatest PR success in a surprising twist of fate. When a client meeting video went viral, Ton communicating entirely through notes and gestures, people interpreted it as a bold statement about mindful communication. Influencers began mimicking his silent method, where he would simply point at something with a "this should be obvious" look on his face. The irony of Ton's silent stardom wasn't lost on him. At a marketing conference he attended via video call, he sat mute while everyone praised his revolutionary approach. The tree outside his home now had fewer than 1,000 leaves, as he wasn't always able to remain silent. Like the time during the pitch meeting when his junior colleague completely misrepresented their strategy, and Ton's frustration slipped out in a 30-word correction that cost him leave so his company would not lose a very important client. This showed him just how important every word was. His mother stayed, despite his silence or perhaps because of it. On the 7th day of her visit, she revealed the truth. His father was dying. "Cancer." She placed a weathered hand on his. "He's asked to see you." The news broke something in Ton. Alone that night, he screamed at the walls about the unfairness, the abandonment, the years of absence. 100 leaves fell in his rage, spiraling down like tears. The next morning, with approximately 900 leaves remaining, Ton wrote a note to his mother, explaining everything about the tree, the curse, his dwindling words. She believed him immediately. "Your grandmother's village had stories of such things," she said. Spiritual lessons made manifest. Together with Chike, they researched similar phenomena in Yoruba folklore. They discovered that such curses typically ended when the lesson was learned, but what exactly was he supposed to learn? Chike advised him to go see his father, and Ton did. The man he saw was a frail shadow in a hospital bed. Unable to speak, he simply sat and listened as the old man, between labored breaths, explained his absence, his struggles, failures, and regrets. For the first time, Ton truly heard another person without mentally preparing his next words. Ton shook his head and got out of his seat. He didn't know what to say to the man. He wanted to yell at him, but there were things worth saying, worth spending his precious words on, but not yet. First, he needed to understand. As the tree leaves dwindled, Ton began experiencing the world differently. He noticed details previously missed, the varying tones in his mother's laughter, the uncertain pauses in Chike's advice, the gentle ways Zainab had tried to reach him that he talked over. One evening, Zainab appeared at his door, having heard about his condition from Chike. Instead of speaking, Ton showed her his journal observations about her he'd written down. The tender way she tucked hair behind her ear when nervous. How her voice lifted at the end of sentences about things she loved. The small sketchbook she always carried but rarely showed anyone. "You noticed all this?" she asked, voice catching. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" He simply pointed to his throat, but they both knew that wasn't the real reason. He'd never said these things because he'd never truly been listening. With fewer than 300 leaves remaining, Ton made 3 decisions about his remaining words. First, Ton had an honest conversation with those who mattered most. To his mother, 30 words of appreciation. To Chike, 20 words of gratitude. To Zainab, he declared his love with simple truth. Second, Baba Ifagbemi reappeared. Ton used 50 words to thank him for the painful gift of silence. Baba simply said, "The tree reveals, it does not create." Finally, he visited his father again. Using exactly 100 words, he expressed not just forgiveness but understanding. His father wept, clutching Ton's hand until he fell asleep. When the final leaf fell, Ton collapsed. The tree dissolved, leaving behind a single seed. At dawn, he awoke. He could speak again. But he used words sparingly. 6 months later, the seed had grown into a sapling. He and Zainab sat beneath it. "Sometimes I still count my words," he said. "Old habits," she smiled. "But now you make them count instead." As he spoke, neither noticed the small leaf unfurling on the young tree, not falling away but growing anew with each word worth saying.